In French history, there is one mystery that has remained buried for more than 300 years. A prisoner whose existence was erased by the state. A man whose face was hidden, whose past was sealed, and whose identity was turned into one of the greatest secrets in Europe. In September of 1698, a heavily guarded carriage secretly entered the Bastille in Paris. Inside was the new governor of the prison, Bénigne de Saint-Mars. But he was not alone. Traveling with him was an elderly prisoner, watched with extreme caution from the moment they left the previous prison. His face was permanently covered by dark fabric. No one was allowed to see what he truly looked like. The royal order was absolute. Guards, officials, and prison staff were forbidden to ask who he was. They were forbidden to look at his face. They were forbidden to question his past. Inside that prison, everything about this man was untouchable. He was not just a prisoner. He was a state secret of the highest level. 5 years later, this unknown prisoner died quietly inside a hidden cell of the Bastille. The authorities registered him under a questionable false name, erased his life story, buried his crime, and cleared away almost every trace of his existence. He was supposed to disappear into the dust of history. But the opposite happened. The extreme secrecy surrounding him turned him into one of the most legendary prisoners in European history. Today, the world remembers him by only one name, the Man in the Iron Mask. For 3 centuries, movies, novels, and legends have imagined him wearing a cold, heavy, terrifying iron mask. But here's the most shocking twist. He probably never wore an iron mask at all. Modern historical research suggests that the object covering his face was not iron, but ordinary black velvet. The frightening iron mask, the brutal image of torture, and the dramatic legend were all shaped later by rumor, literature, and popular imagination. And once that dramatic legend is stripped away, the real darkness becomes much clearer. The true mystery was never about a mask. It was never just about a hidden face. The real question is far more disturbing. Why did the French monarchy, at the height of its power, use state-level resources for 34 years to erase one ordinary man's identity, his past, and every trace of his existence? To understand this mystery, we have to enter the age of Louis XIV, the age of absolute monarchy in France. This was the golden age of Versailles, when royal authority stood above everything. Court rituals were strict, and the fate of France revolved around the will of one king. Louis XIV built one of the most powerful monarchies in Europe. Nobles competed for royal favor, but behind the beauty, luxury, and golden halls of Versailles, there was a darker machine. Surveillance, secret arrests, hidden prisons, and prisoners who could vanish completely with a single royal order. The real beginning of this case can be traced to a confidential royal letter from 1669. The Marquis de Louvois, one of the king's most powerful ministers, set secret instructions to Saint-Mars, then governor of the prison at Pignerol. A special prisoner was about to arrive. His registered name was Eustache Dauger. The instructions were almost obsessive. He was to be held alone. He was not allowed to speak freely. He was to be completely cut off from the outside world. Every detail of his imprisonment had to be controlled. The guards were to watch his every move and give him no chance to send a message, leave a clue, or preserve any trace of himself. There was no dramatic legend at the beginning, no royal scandal, no hidden prince, no theatrical backstory. The story of the Man in the Iron Mask began with a cold, secret order and a name that could easily be replaced, hidden, or erased. For the next 34 years, this prisoner became Saint-Mars's personal captive. Wherever Saint-Mars went, the prisoner followed. From the remote prison of Pignerol to the fortress of Aix-les, to the isolated island prison of Sainte Marguerite, and finally to the Bastille in Paris. 34 years passed. Ministers changed. Wars came and went. The king grew older. The world moved forward. But this nameless prisoner remained locked away, transferred from prison to prison, hidden from public view, and guarded with extraordinary care. That level of secrecy tells us something important. Whether he was noble or common, powerful or powerless, the royal government believed he was dangerous enough to hide for life. But how dangerous could a prisoner truly be once he had lost his freedom and been cut off from the world? For 300 years, historians have searched for the answer. As the evidence has been studied again and again, three major theories have emerged. Each is fascinating, each is unsettling, and each has serious problems. The most famous and dramatic theory is the royal twin theory. Many people have believed that the mysterious prisoner was the identical twin brother of Louis XIV. It is a perfect story for the imagination. To protect the king's legitimacy and prevent a struggle for the throne, the royal family secretly hid one child from birth. One brother became the glorious Sun King, ruling over France. The other was imprisoned for life and erased from the world. Voltaire helped popularize the idea that the prisoner was connected to the royal family. Later, Alexandre Dumas turned the theory into a legendary work of fiction, spreading the image of the king's hidden double across the world. As a story, it is almost perfect, but as history, it falls apart. The birth of a royal heir was never a private event. It involved doctors, nobles, religious figures, witnesses, court procedures, and official records. To secretly hide the twin brother of Louis XIV would have required a massive conspiracy involving many people, all remaining silent for decades. In the real political world of the French court, that is almost impossible to believe. The legend is powerful, but the evidence is weak. The second major theory points to an Italian diplomat named Ercole Antonio Mattioli. Mattioli was involved in secret negotiations between France and the Italian fortress of Casale, a strategically important location in northern Italy. Louis XIV wanted control over it, and the deal was meant to remain secret. But Mattioli betrayed the arrangement. For personal gain, he revealed the confidential agreement and angered the French king. Soon afterward, French agents kidnapped him and imprisoned him in secret. From that point on, he disappeared from public life. This theory has one strong piece of supporting evidence. After the masked prisoner died, he was buried under a name that sounded similar to Marchioli, which reminded many historians of Mattioli. For a time, this seemed like the answer, but the timeline creates a major problem. Historical records show that Saint-Mars' special prisoner had already been imprisoned in 1669. Mattioli's betrayal and arrest happened years later. The dates do not line up. The logic does not hold. So Mattioli may have helped shape the legend, but he was probably not the true man in the Iron Mask. Once the romantic legend and the political conspiracy are stripped away, the remaining theory is much quieter, but perhaps even more disturbing. The prisoner may have been exactly who the document said he was: Eustache Dauger, an ordinary servant or valet. After centuries of mystery, they expect a fallen prince, a powerful politician, or a dangerous spy. It is hard to accept that one of Europe's greatest mysteries may have centered on a man with no famous name at all. But the darkest truth of absolute monarchy is hidden in that possibility. Under a system of absolute power, a person's danger was not measured by rank. It was measured by what he knew. A servant could overhear private conversations. A valet could carry letters. A minor agent could witness secret negotiations, royal scandals, or dirty political arrangements. He did not need to command armies. He did not need to lead a rebellion. He did not need followers. He only needed to hear something he was never supposed to hear. Sometimes, the most dangerous person in a palace is not the king who gives the orders. It is the silent witness who hears them. That is the human and political core of the entire mystery. The man in the iron mask became a legend not because he was powerful, but because he was hidden. Secrecy creates value. Total silence expands imagination. If the monarchy had publicly named his crime, revealed his identity, and explained why he was punished, the mystery might have disappeared long ago. But because the state chose erasure, silence, and absolute concealment, this unknown prisoner escaped his own century and became immortal. Even more interesting, this secrecy did not only serve the king, it also served the men who controlled the secret. St. Mars's status rose because he guarded a prisoner of national importance. Guarding an ordinary inmate was routine duty. Guarding a mysterious prisoner tied to the highest secrets of the monarchy gave him power, prestige, and access to the shadow of royal authority. The mask, the isolation, and the secrecy were partly used to imprison the man, but they also elevated the importance of the people who controlled him. Once a secret becomes useful, people protect it. They exaggerate it. They turn it into something larger than itself. Now imagine the prisoner's life. For 34 years, he lost his name, his face, his past, his relationships, and his right to be remembered. Guards knew him only as an old prisoner. Officials referred to him through vague descriptions and coded language. He was alive, but the official world had already sentenced him to disappearance. Ordinary prisoners lose their freedom. This man lost his identity. That is what makes the mystery so suffocating. The punishment was not only imprisonment, it was systematic erasure. Power did not merely take away his liberty, it tried to remove the evidence that he had ever existed. To this day, we still do not have one final answer. Every theory has clues. Every theory has weaknesses. If he was the king's twin brother, why is there no reliable court record or witness testimony? If he was Mattioli, why does the timeline fail to match? If he was only Eustache Dauger, an ordinary servant, what secret could have been so dangerous that France guarded him for 34 years? The mystery survives not because there are no clues, but because the most important clues were deliberately cut off, cleaned away, and erased by power. What we know for certain is limited. We know he existed. We know he was secretly imprisoned during the reign of Louis XIV. We know he was guarded by St. Mars for decades. We know he died in the Bastille in 1703. And we know he probably never wore the iron mask of legend. But the most important truth remains locked in the darkest corner of royal power. And that may be the most frightening part of the story. A person did not need to commit a massive crime. He did not need to betray the crown. He did not need to threaten the entire monarchy. Under absolute power, simply knowing the wrong secret, seeing the wrong truth, or touching the hidden shame of powerful people could be enough to make someone disappear forever. The story of the man in the iron mask is not just a strange historical legend. It is a cold lesson in power. A king can imprison a body. A government can erase a name. A prison can hide a face. But extreme secrecy and absolute silence often create the very thing they are meant to destroy. Endless suspicion, immortal legend, and questions that never stop being asked. The French monarchy wanted this man to disappear quietly. Instead, it turned him into one of the most unforgettable prisoners in European history. That is the strange irony of history. Power believed it had erased a man, but in doing so, it made him eternal. 300 years have passed. The Iron Mask has been exposed as a legend. But the man behind the silence, the man hidden and erased by the state, still remains inside the fog of history. So what do you think the real answer is? Was he a secret royal relative? A betrayed diplomatic pawn? Or an ordinary servant who knew too much and had to be silenced forever? Leave your theory in the comments and subscribe for more dark history, historical mysteries, and the hidden truths of human nature.